Alright guys, what is ecology part 1? So what is ecology? Ecology is the study of interactions that take place between organisms and their environment. It explains how living organisms affect each other and the world they live in. So habitat and niche. Habitat is the place a plant or animal lives. Your habitat would be your home, your bedroom. That is where you spend. Your niche is an organism's total way of life. So your niche would be what you like to do. Are you a football player? Do you run track? Do you play basketball? Are you in the band? The color guard? Those things would be your niche. It is what you are good at, what you spend most of your life doing. So we're going to talk about the non-living environment. Our non-living environment includes abiotic factors. The abiotic factors are the non-living parts of the organism's environment. Examples include air currents, temperature, moisture, light, and soil. Abiotic factors affect an organism's life. If lightning strikes your house, that's going to affect your life. Okay, those are abiotic factors, non-living. So let me go into the living environment. Biotic factors. All the living organisms that inhabit an environment would be considered your biotic factors. All organisms depend on others directly or indirectly for food, shelter, reproduction, or protection. But how do we know if something is living? Well, let's talk about the characteristics of living things. What defines an organism as being biotic or living? It must have all of the following: made up of cells, uses energy, reproduces offspring, responds to stimuli, grows, and develops. We can also add in there maintains homeostasis. If it is missing just one of those characteristics, it is not considered living. So think about a tree versus a piece of paper. Why is the piece of paper not considered living even though it came from a living tree? So let's go into our abiotic or biotic. Is this considered abiotic, biotic? This would be biotic. Abiotic or biotic? Tornado would be abiotic. The rocks in the water would be abiotic. Our coral would be biotic. It is living. Our levels of organization. So what are the simplest levels of organization? Well, our simplest is our atom. Our atom is our elements that help make up our bodies. Then we go into our molecule. It is more than one atom combined to create something. From there we go into our organelles, such as our mitochondria. Our organelles help our cells function. They're the tiny little organs. Then we go into our cells. A cell is the smallest unit of life. A group of cells that perform the same function is a tissue. From there we go to our organ, which is a group of tissues that perform the same function. An organ system, or a group of organs that perform the same function. And then finally, the simplest level is our organism. Even though we consider it probably one of the highest, it's actually small and relatively speaking. The next thing we're going to go into is how our ecologists would define our levels of organization. Ecologists have organized the interactions an organism takes place into different levels according to the complexity. Well, our first level of organization we're going to talk about an organism, one species, an individual living thing that is made up of cells, uses energy, reproduces, responds, grows, and develops. This one zebra is an organism. It is one species. The next we're going to talk about is a population, a group of organisms, all of the same species, which interbreed and live in the same place at the same time. All of these zebras are the same species, so they make a population. That would be like if you asked how many people live in Decatur. We're talking only the population. The third level of organization is the community. All populations of different species that live in the same place at the same time. So here we have trees, we have our, looks like ox, and then we have zebra. Those are different species living in the same place at the same time. Fourth level of organization is our ecosystem. Populations of plants and animals that interact with each other in a given area with the abiotic components of that area. We also include terrestrial or aquatic. So now we're talking about everything: our sun, our wind, our water, rain, dirt, as well as our plants and our animals. So that is an ecosystem. From there we go to our fifth level of organization, that is our biosphere. Life is found in air, on land, and fresh and salt water, and we call this our biosphere. So the biosphere is the portion of Earth that supports living things. When you look at an image of Earth, what you see is the biosphere. A biome is a large area that has a particular climate and a particular species of plants and animals that live there. For example, the tundra, the desert, the rainforest, the savanna. Each one of those is a biome, has a particular climate as well as particular species of plants and animals. What level of organization? This would be an organism. Community. Population. And we're going to go into our carrying capacity for an ecosystem. Every habitat has its own carrying capacity, or the number of organisms that an environment can support. It all depends on the amount of resources available to the organism, how much competition, type of mates, the amount of space, and predation. Remember, there is a limit to what that ecosystem can hold. So here we have a graph showing our carrying capacity. The x-axis is our time, the y-axis is our population. This red line represents our carrying capacity, or the max at which that ecosystem can hold or feed and support individuals. So let's say we have 100 fish in a pond. So we start here with 1 or 2 fish in our pond, and they start to reproduce and reproduce and reproduce and reproduce because we have plenty of food and space. And then all of a sudden we get to 100 fish, our pond is at its max, but they're still reproducing and reproducing. They're still reproducing, and as they reproduce, we have too many fish in this small pond, so some have to die because now there's not enough food to go around. So if there's not enough food, fish die, they die, they die. We get to our carrying capacity, we have back to 100, we have plenty of fish. Here, we below our carrying capacity, so we live, and then we reproduce, reproduce, reproduce. We're at 100 fish. We don't have enough food for over 100 fish. We're back to 100 fish. We live. We're below 100 fish. We're good. We're happy. We reproduce, reproduce, reproduce until we try to equal it out. And again, here's another graph showing the time, population. The blue line here represents our carrying capacity. So remember, anything over our carrying capacity, we have too many animals, not enough food, not enough space, so animals must die. So here, these animals are going to die. Down here, we're below it, so we have plenty of food and space, so we can reproduce and live happy. So limiting factors. So not only is it carrying capacity, but we have limiting factors that prevent the growth of a population. Disease, lack of food, competition, space, mates, weather, predation, age. Any of these things can lead to the death of an animal. We also have genetic variation. Why do species have different variations? Well, we are all not alike. Variations in the variety and characteristics of organisms allows for survival. Are they fast? Are they slow? Are they tall? Are they short? Does that animal blend into the environment very well? Tolerance. Tolerance equals an organism's capacity to survive in unfavorable conditions. How well are they tolerable to that environment? Different species have different ecological tolerances. For example, if we take a cactus out of the desert, and it can survive in the desert with little water, but if you put them in the rainforest, they won't be able to survive because they're not tolerant to that amount of water. So now let's talk about our survival relationships. A predator is a type of consumer. Predators seek out and eat other organisms. So predation is found in all ecosystems and includes organisms that eat plants and animals. We have 3 types of survival relationships. There are 3 kinds of symbiosis, symbiosis meaning living together. So we have mutualism, both organisms benefit, commensalism, one benefits, one's neutral, and parasitism, one benefits, one's harmed. So again, mutualism, a symbiotic relationship in which both species benefit, the butterfly and the flower. Butterfly gets pollen, flower gets pollinated. They're both happy. Commensalism, a symbiotic relationship in which one species benefits and the other species is neither harmed nor benefited. So the sea anemone and the clownfish. The sea anemone receives no benefit of the clownfish being there. The clownfish gets the protection from the sea anemone, so therefore the clownfish has a home. Parasitism, a symbiotic relationship in which a member of one species derives benefit at the expense of another species. So one is harmed, one is helped. The mosquito biting the human, the flea on a dog, that is parasitism. So question, how does each situation illustrate commensalism? A bird builds its nest in the crook of a tree branch. Algae grows on the shell of a marine turtle. Number 2, give examples of biotic and abiotic factors in a forest ecosystem. Number 3, a bee pollinates a flower. The flower is fertilized and the bee is able to produce honey from the pollen. Interpret and describe this type of relationship. Make sure you have your notes done and ready to go. Beginning of class.